Hello and welcome to this Philbert Flies review of iniBuilds Los Angeles International Airport scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator. In this video I am going to be showing you around the airport, talking you through some of the details, telling you what I like and what I don't like, and finishing up with my overall opinion on whether or not you should buy it. Let's get started. We're going to start by having a look at the passenger terminals, and I've parked up on stand 201 at the westernmost of these, the midfield satellite concourse, and as is customary, we're going to take a look at how well the jetway connects to the aircraft. And the answer is beautifully. Lovely smooth animation. The jetway hood stops at the right place, doesn't go through the skin of the aircraft, and it looks very, very nice once it's connected. Let's take a look at the jetway itself. Now these are all custom modelled, and iniBuilds have done a very nice job of them, I think. I love the shiny pipework. The texture quality is reasonable. There is a little bit of blurriness if you get up super close, but from the aircraft cockpit perspective they look lovely, and I'm very impressed by these little dinks and chips in the paintwork, which just adds to the realism. There's also a good amount of detail on the underside of the jetways. Again, we've got some paint scuffs and chips, we've got some air conditioning piping, very nice indeed. The midfield satellite concourse building looks really good. It's been very well modelled. We've got lovely smooth curved roofs, no sign of any jagged edges when you view them from the side, and the texture works pretty high quality as well. The face of the building looks really nice as well. We've got some good detail in the form of these window shades, and the glass is nice and reflective with a slight tint. Down at ground level, the textures are not the crispest I've ever seen. There is a little bit of blurriness here, even from a little distance away as we are now. But overall, it's a nice looking building. As we move inside, you'll notice what a good job iniBuilds have done with the glass. You can see that lovely tint, and the reflection looks very realistic as well. If I was being super nitpicky, I would say it looks a little bit too perfect and a little bit too clean. A little bit of dirt on here or some slight warping of some of the panes would have been the pièce de résistance, but it does look lovely. And you'll notice that it retains its tint from the inside, meaning that you can come inside and look out at your aircraft and admire the apron views. The detail inside this concourse is pretty impressive. You'll notice that we have seating, we've got furniture around the gates, we've got signage, litter bins, and a really, really nice looking roof as well if we pan up here. You can see that that interior is absolutely flawless. Beautiful curve to it, lovely ceiling textures, really, really nice. Continuing to the south, we have even more of that lovely interior modelling with a sort of a cafe area over here, and the whole building sort of opens out here away from the stands, so you can really get a lovely sense of the scale of this place. And it's not just the ground floor that's been modelled either. These mezzanine levels continue all the way along the concourse, and I'm particularly impressed by this sculpture in the middle of the atrium area here. Now, you will notice that some of the textures are a little bit on the blurry side, but it's important to remember that this airport is just vast, and the performance for me has been absolutely faultless so far. So I'd rather have slightly blurry textures in the less visited parts of the airport and better performance than everything being super crisp and the thing running like a slideshow. Moving east, we next come to the Bradley International Terminal, which in my opinion is the best bit of this airport. The architecture is absolutely stunning, and iniBuilds have done a great job of recreating it. Again, these curved roofs with different radii are perfectly modelled. No jagged edges, they look incredibly lifelike and realistic. The exterior texture work along this wall at ground level here is very nice. That looks very realistic to me. Again, if you get super close, you will notice a bit of blurriness, but, and I will keep saying this, it's a huge airport and you can't have everything. Moving inside, the interior here is absolutely sublime. Just take a look at this. I don't feel I even need to speak here, really. I think it speaks for itself. Just beautiful. And this continues along the full length of the terminal. There's one part of this terminal that I'm not so keen on though, and that is these jetway piers, which have no transparency and instead incredibly reflective shiny green glass, which to me looks too mirrored and it just doesn't blend in with the lovely transparent glass we see elsewhere. So that is a little bit of a shame, considering the effort that they went to with the interior modelling. It would have been nice to see it extended all the way out instead of having those opaque windows. The remainder of the passenger areas continue to the east around this central landside area. I'm not going to show you every single pier and every single concourse because we'd be here all day, but I will show you a few of them just to give you an idea of what to expect. There's no further interior modelling across the passenger terminals beyond what we've seen already, but what iniBuilds have done instead is make use of parallax effect, and I think they've done a great job of that. As we move along here, just take a look at the image you can see inside. It looks very realistic, and pulling up here in an aircraft, I don't think it looks significantly less realistic than full interior modelling. And of course it's much kinder on your frames. This is the main Terminal 2 building, and you get an even better idea of the parallax effect through these larger windows. One of the things I find fascinating about this airport is the variety of architectural styles. This is Terminal 7 over on the southeastern side of the airport, and as you can see, it looks completely different to what we've seen so far. Bright whitewashed walls, and some really nice dirt at the top of them. Again, very good modelling and very good texturing. And iniBuilds have even modelled this outside terrace up here, which is really nice to see. You'll no doubt have noticed by now the amount of ground clutter that iniBuilds have included in this scenery. I love a bit of ground clutter, it really adds to the atmosphere of the airport, and all of the vehicles and equipment included are modelled to a very high standard. In the southeast corner of the main central passenger area of the airport, we have the box terminal, which I believe is mostly used by regional jets, hence the fairly unique ramp infrastructure you see here. iniBuilds have done a pretty good job of modelling this, however the texture work is fairly poor in this area. These top grey boxes here are in fact supposed to be windows, and they are slightly reflective, but they are also opaque and concrete coloured. You'll notice that the general texture work is very low resolution here as well. I said at the start of the video that the midfield satellite concourse was the westernmost passenger terminal, and in fact that wasn't quite true, because I'd completely forgotten about these west remote stands. Now, I've never seen anything quite like these at any other airport in the world. They're strange little boxy things with giant jetways connected to them, but I'm pretty impressed with how well iniBuilds have recreated them. The jetways look very realistic, and I'm particularly impressed by the 3D signage on them, as well as things like the passenger buses out the front, waiting to take passengers to the main part of the terminal. So that's the bulk of the main passenger infrastructure covered. We'll move on now to looking at some of the other buildings and areas of the airport, starting with this united maintenance area. As you'll see, we have a few static aircraft parked up over here, and the models used are pretty good quality. There are no static aircraft at any of the gates, which I like to see because I like to simulate real-world flights, including where aircraft start from and finish. I know that opinions vary on this, however. The hangar over here has been really nicely done. We've got transparent glass, and as you will see in a minute, we have two aircraft parked up inside. Here you go. They only just fit, but they do fit. And it's a detail that's really nice to see. It adds a lot of life to the airport if you're taxiing down this way, and you can have a look inside and see them here. The quality of the modelling and texturing is pretty high in this area, and I really like the fact that the glass is slightly imperfect. You'll notice that the reflections are not perfectly even, and that's what I would have loved to have seen on the passenger terminal as well, if I'm honest. Continuing even further east, we have the Bravo 1 cargo area and its associated building. Now, this is a fairly nondescript building. It's fairly dull, but iniBuilds have done a really good job with the modelling here. We've got a lot of detail on the roof. I love the care they've taken over the curve in these floodlights. And the texture works really good too, with a good amount of weathering, a good amount of detail. And, as I always say at cargo terminals, these are really busy, bustling places, and it's nice to see that iniBuilds have included so much ground clutter to recreate this feeling. This is the Imperial Cargo Complex, which appears to be the largest cargo apron at LAX, and iniBuilds have done a fab job here as well. Really nice quality buildings, really good crisp signage, loads of ground clutter. I'm impressed because it's not unheard of for developers to neglect the cargo areas somewhat. Here's the FedEx building and apron, modelled to a similarly high standard, also with some very nice weathered textures. And also on the south of the airport, roughly adjacent to the middle of runway 7 right 25 left, we have one of two FBO buildings for Atlantic Aviation. Now, the texture work on this building's a little bit disappointing. It is a little blurry if you get up close. But the 3D signage is very impressive, very realistic. And as with everywhere across the airport, the modelling is first class. So plenty to look forward to for you business jet lovers. And jumping across to the very western end of the airport now, we have the West Aircraft Maintenance Area, home to this Qantas hangar. Again, very nicely modelled and great to see some static aircraft next to it. Let's take a look at the ground textures now, and I have to say iniBuilds have done an incredible job with these. Every stand has unique dirt patterns, unique spots of oil and spills. The surface is exactly the right colour. Take a look at the Google satellite imagery and it's indistinguishable. The ground markings are nicely done, they're not too bright, they're nicely faded and grubby. All of the apron areas, all of the taxiways look fantastic. They've even got the varying shades of turquoisey, bluey, green colours correct in these areas in between the taxiways. And the 3D signage looks very good as well. I normally only show you one runway in my reviews, but I'm going to make an exception today because iniBuilds have done such a great job of differentiating between them. And the runway textures are some of the best I've seen. This here is runway 24 left, 6 right. And this is runway 24 right, 6 left. You can see how different it is, just like at the real airport. Once again, take a look at the Google satellite imagery and compare it. It goes without saying that the runway markings are very accurate. We'll take a look at the landside areas now, and again, because it's such a huge airport, I'm not going to show you everything there is to see. But I'll start by giving you an overview of what the terminal entrances look like. You'll notice that we have a well-modelled elevated roadway with reasonable ground textures. They could be crisper, but they look okay. The lower level textures are worse, quite blurry as you can see, but the overall impression is pretty good, with a great amount of detail from the signage above the various entrance doors to the little palms, to the vehicles parked up outside. We have some very nicely modelled car parks, complete with 3D car models parked on the upper stories, as well as this, I don't know if it's a roadway or a railway, I'm not sure, but some kind of bridge which is under construction, complete with a crane. And now, probably the most exciting two bits of the landside. Firstly, the control tower, which has been, as you can see, very, very nicely modelled. I love these steel cables over here on the other side of it. And in general, the structure looks amazing, very, very lifelike. We even have transparent glass and a modelled interior on the operating floor up here. What a view. And of course the iconic theme building, which has been very nicely modelled. Some of the edges are a little bit jagged, unfortunately, unlike the beautifully smooth curved roofs of the terminals, but the overall impression is great. Again, every steel cable individually modelled. That is impressive stuff. There's a little bit of weird flickering going on here at ground level where the satellite imagery interacts with the model in some way. Just, yeah, a little bit of a shame, but it's a minor thing really, isn't it? Overall, it looks lovely. And here at the eastern end, we can see the main road entrance into the airport. And iniBuilds have done a fantastic job of modelling the pretty complex elevated road network. We even have a very nice looking American flag here at the entrance. Let's take a look at LAX by night. We're back where we began at the midfield satellite concourse, and as you can see, the lighting is absolutely beautiful. Both the apron lighting and the light that you can see inside the terminal looks just right. Very, very realistic indeed. And it's no less impressive when you pop inside the terminal and take a look outside. It really does feel like you're looking out at a dark airport ramp. The only thing I don't like about the interior by night is the ceiling, which is completely black, except for the occasional strip lights that you see over here. So in terms of light sources, it could probably do with a few more of them, or a bit more reflection, or something like that. But I'm really nitpicking here. You're not going to spend much time inside by night, and from the outside, which is what counts, it looks fantastic. I'm pleased to say, however, that this isn't the case inside the Bradley International Terminal, which looks absolutely spot on. And it looks great from the outside as well. With the exception of these opaque window textures that I moaned about earlier, there's no obvious light coming from within them, so it does look a little bit dead compared with the bulk of the terminal, which looks amazing. I'm pleased to say that the apron lighting continues to impress me across the airport, and the parallax windows look fantastic by night as well. Over on the Landside, the theme building and the tower look spectacular. Really, really nicely lit. And the terminal entrances look sort of okay. They could do with a little bit more work. I know opaque window textures are never going to look as good as parallax or transparent glass, but I would have liked to have seen a bit more proper lighting along this walkway next to the road, and perhaps some light sources for whatever is lighting these structures up. But you know, overall, the Landside looks really, really good. The cargo and GA aprons on the south side of the airport have also been shown some love, with some really nice looking apron lighting and some pretty reasonable opaque window textures, to be honest, as well. The runway lighting looks fantastic, and I'm pleased to see that iniBuilds have used custom taxiway centerline lights as well, giving these yellow and green lights where appropriate. So what's my overall verdict? Well, I found a lot to like and very little to moan about. On the negative side, there were a few opaque window textures that I found a bit unrealistic and jarring, a tiny bit of flickering at the base of the theme building, the odd blurry texture, and a dark ceiling inside the midfield satellite concourse at night. But overall, LAX is a magnificent piece of work. The modelling is first class, the texturing in most places is good, the two terminals with interiors look fantastic, and the parallax works incredibly well as a substitute for an interior on the other terminals. The ground textures are some of the best I've seen, and the night lighting is incredibly well done and atmospheric. iniBuilds have managed to squeeze an incredible amount of detail into this scenery, from ground clutter to construction cranes to static aircraft, and yet it performs better for me than Asobo's handcrafted default, so hats off to them. In my opinion, this should be a day one purchase. Unless, of course, you want to wait for my giveaway stream, which will be happening on Thursday the 6th of October 2022 at midday UTC over at twitch.tv/filbertflies. Why not drop me a follow now, just in case you forget. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been useful. Do like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope to see you again soon, either here on YouTube or over on Twitch. Take care. Bye-bye.